Stop making excuses. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Today, I want to talk about something that holds many of us back from reaching our true potential. Excuses. We all face challenges, setbacks, and obstacles. But the biggest barrier between where you are now and where you want to be isn't the difficulty of the task, it's the excuses we tell ourselves. Excuses are like comfortable cages. Every excuse we make is a choice to avoid responsibility, to delay action, and to settle for less than we deserve. But the truth is, no one ever succeeded by making excuses. Success belongs to those who look their challenges in the eye and say, I will figure this out. So what if instead of excuses, we chose solutions? What if every time we felt like giving up, we reminded ourselves that the power to change is in our hands? The path to success is not perfect. It's messy, it's difficult, and yes, it's scary. Huh? But when you stop making excuses, you start making progress. Remember, the only thing standing between you and your goals is the story you keep telling yourself. So let's change the story today. Stop making excuses and start taking action. Thank you. Excuses have a powerful way of holding us back, often without us even realizing it. They seem harmless at first, just little justifications we tell ourselves to ease discomfort or avoid responsibility. But when you look deeper, excuses are one of the biggest obstacles standing between where you are now and where you could be. They limit your potential in profound ways, cutting short opportunities before they even have a chance to develop. When we make excuses, we are essentially setting boundaries on what we believe is possible for ourselves. Instead of seeing challenges as stepping stones to growth, excuses frame those same challenges as insurmountable walls. For example, you might say, I'm not talented enough, I don't have enough time, or I'm too old to start now. Each of these statements is an excuse. The more excuses you make, the more doors you close, often without even trying to open them. This self-imposed limitation is one of the most destructive aspects of excuses. Our minds are incredibly powerful, and what we tell ourselves shapes our beliefs and actions. If your internal dialogue constantly repeats, I can't do this because of X, eventually, your brain begins to accept that as truth. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The potential inside you, whether it's creative, professional, athletic, or personal, remains locked away because your mind won't let you believe it can come out. Excuses also serve as a shield to protect us from failure and disappointment, but ironically, they become a barrier to success. When you excuse yourself from trying, you avoid the risk of failing, but you also miss the chance to learn, grow, and ultimately succeed. This risk avoidance is natural. No one enjoys failure, but when it becomes a habit, it turns into a limiting factor that stunts your development. Potential can only be realized when you push through discomfort and uncertainty. Excuses prevent you from taking that crucial step. Moreover, excuses create a fixed mindset rather than a growth mindset. People with a fixed mindset believe their abilities and intelligence are static, something you are born with and cannot change. Excuses reinforce this belief because they are statements of limitation. On the other hand, a growth mindset is based on the belief that with effort, learning, and persistence, abilities can improve and develop over time. When you make excuses, you are unknowingly endorsing the fixed mindset, which keeps your potential stuck at its current level. One of the most common excuses people make is related to time. I don't have enough time is a phrase that almost everyone uses at some point. But when you analyze it closely, time is a resource everyone has equally, 24 hours in a day, no more and no less. The difference lies in how we prioritize and use that time. Excusing yourself by blaming lack of time is really an excuse for not prioritizing your goals. Outlay. It's easier to say I'm too busy than to confront the uncomfortable truth that we often waste precious hours on unproductive activities or distractions. Excuses also limit your potential by preventing you from stepping out of your comfort zone. Growth rarely happens inside comfort zones because comfort zones are familiar and safe. Excuses tell you to stay where you feel safe, telling you that taking risks is too dangerous or that failure is too painful. But potential thrives in the unknown. It expands when you challenge yourself, face new experiences, and push your limits. Excuses act like an invisible leash, keeping you tethered to what's easy and familiar instead of exploring what you might achieve beyond that. Beyond personal limitations, excuses can also impact relationships and how others perceive you. When you constantly make excuses, people begin to see you as unreliable or lacking commitment. This can lead to missed opportunities professionally and personally because others may stop trusting your words or counting on you. Your potential to build strong, meaningful relationships and networks diminishes because excuses erode confidence in your integrity and dedication. Another way excuses limit your potential is by shaping your identity in a negative way. We often define ourselves by the stories we tell about who we are. If those stories are filled with excuses, I'm not good at math, I can't speak well in public, or I'm not creative, then these statements become a part of your identity. Once your identity is tied to limitations, it becomes very difficult to break free and try something new or take on challenges that contradict those beliefs. Your potential remains trapped because the version of yourself you believe in is one that is incapable or unworthy. Excuses also have a compounding effect. The more you allow yourself to make excuses, the more accustomed you become to taking the easy way out. It creates a habit of avoidance. Over time, this habit rewires your brain to look for reasons not to act instead of reasons to act. Your potential, which thrives on action, effort, and persistence, is starved by inaction. The more you delay, the harder it becomes to start because your brain starts associating action with discomfort and excuses with comfort. This dynamic makes it even harder to break free from excuses and realize your true capabilities. Importantly, excuses are often rooted in fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. Fear is a natural response, but when it dictates your decisions through excuses, it limits your potential drastically. Facing fear head-on is uncomfortable, but it's necessary for growth. When you stop making excuses and acknowledge your fears, you can start to dismantle them. Each time you face a fear, instead of hiding behind an excuse, you expand your boundaries and unlock more of your potential. In addition to personal fears, social and cultural conditioning can also contribute to the excuses we make. Sometimes we internalize messages from family, society, or past experiences that tell us what we can or cannot do. These external limitations often become internal excuses. Breaking free from this conditioning requires awareness and courage to challenge long-held beliefs and excuses that no longer serve us. Without this breakthrough, your potential remains limited by invisible chains created by external influences. On a practical level, excuses prevent you from taking advantage of opportunities that could transform your life. Life is full of moments where you can choose to step forward or step back. Excuses make you step back repeatedly. For example, someone might have a chance to apply for a promotion, but convinces themselves they're not ready or qualified enough. This excuse robs them not only of the chance to grow professionally, but also of the confidence and experience that come from taking on new challenges. Over time, this pattern repeats, and the gap between where you are and where you could be widens. What's striking is that the cost of excuses is often invisible until much later. The what ifs linger in your mind, and they can become a source of regret and frustration. Potential is lost not just in a single moment, but accumulates over time as excuses compound. The opportunities you passed up, the skills you didn't develop, and the experiences you missed, all of these add up to a version of yourself that could have been far greater. In the context of personal goals, whether it's fitness, learning a new skill, or building a business, excuses undermine consistency. Progress in any area requires steady effort and dedication. Excuses break that consistency by providing convenient reasons to skip practice, avoid hard work, or procrastinate. Without consistency, your potential remains dormant because growth is the result of persistent action over time. Finally, it's important to recognize that the power to break free from excuses lies within you. While excuses may feel automatic, They are a choice. Every time you catch yourself making an excuse, you have the opportunity to challenge it. You can ask, is this really true? Or, what can I do instead? No. This simple shift in awareness begins to open the door to your potential, allowing you to move beyond limitations and take action toward your goals. Taking responsibility is one of the most transformative decisions you can make in your life. When you choose to own your actions, your choices, and your outcomes, you tap into a power that is both liberating and empowering. It's the difference between feeling like a victim of circumstance and becoming the architect of your own destiny. Unfortunately, many people avoid responsibility because it feels uncomfortable or overwhelming, and instead they lean on excuses to shift the blame elsewhere. But this avoidance actually disempowers you and keeps you stuck. When you stop making excuses and begin taking full responsibility for your life, you claim control over your journey. This is a profound shift in mindset because it means you acknowledge that your success and failures are primarily the result of your own decisions. This doesn't mean that external factors don't influence your life. Of course, they do, but it means you refuse to let those factors dictate your future. Instead of being at the mercy of circumstances, you see yourself as an active participant in shaping your outcomes. One of the reasons responsibility is so empowering is that it brings clarity. When you stop blaming others or situations, you stop wasting mental energy on things outside your control. This focus allows you to concentrate on what you can do. For example, if you blame your lack of progress on a difficult boss or unsupportive environment, your energy is spent on frustration and complaints. But when you take responsibility, you ask yourself, what can I do to improve my skills, communicate better, or find a new path? This proactive approach creates opportunities for growth instead of dead ends. Taking responsibility also builds confidence. When you accept accountability for your actions and their consequences, you learn valuable lessons from both successes and failures. Each experience becomes a chance to improve. This cycle of learning strengthens your self-trust. You become someone who can rely on yourself to face challenges head-on, rather than someone who looks for excuses or external validation. It's tricky. This inner confidence is crucial because it fuels perseverance and resilience, key qualities for long-term success. Moreover, responsibility fosters a sense of ownership that drives motivation. When you recognize that your goals and dreams depend largely on your efforts, you become more invested in achieving them. This ownership motivates you to put in the necessary work, maintain discipline, and push through setbacks. Excuses, by contrast, dilute your motivation because they imply that your efforts don't matter as much. Something else is in the way. But responsibility reminds you that you hold the keys and your efforts are what unlock progress. On a deeper level, taking responsibility transforms your relationship with failure. Instead of seeing failure as a defeat caused by bad luck or external forces, you view it as feedback from your own actions. This shift is empowering because it removes fear and shame associated with failure. When you own your mistakes, you gain insights into what went wrong and how to do better next time. This iterative process is what leads to mastery and success. Excuses, on the other hand, keep you stuck in denial or blame, which prevents growth. Another important aspect is that taking responsibility strengthens your integrity. Integrity means aligning your actions with your values and commitments. When you take responsibility, you honor your promises to yourself and others. You become reliable and trustworthy because you don't dodge accountability. This builds stronger relationships and reputations, which open doors professionally and personally. People are naturally drawn to those who take ownership rather than those who shift blame. Taking responsibility also improves problem-solving skills. When you stop looking for excuses, you start focusing on solutions. This mindset shift encourages creativity and resourcefulness because you are no longer waiting for perfect conditions or external fixes. Instead, you actively seek ways to overcome obstacles, adapt to change, and find new paths forward. This proactive attitude is crucial in today's fast-paced, ever-changing world. Importantly, responsibility promotes emotional maturity. It requires you to manage your reactions, control impulses, and face uncomfortable truths. This emotional discipline is essential for effective decision-making and leadership. When you own your feelings and behaviors, you are less likely to be reactive or blame others for your emotional state. This stability allows you to navigate challenges calmly and thoughtfully, which increases your effectiveness in all areas of life. Taking responsibility also encourages accountability, which means holding yourself to high standards. Accountability is not about perfection, but about commitment to continuous improvement. When you make excuses, you lower your standards by accepting less than your best or by justifying failure. Responsibility challenges you to rise to your potential consistently, pushing beyond comfort zones and limiting beliefs. In a broader context, taking responsibility contributes to empowerment by giving you a sense of freedom. While it may sound paradoxical, owning your life actually makes you less dependent on external validation or circumstances. Instead of feeling like a victim, you become an agent of change. This freedom comes from the awareness that while you can't control everything, you can control how you respond. Your response shapes your reality, and taking responsibility is the first step toward that empowerment. Another key benefit is that responsibility cultivates resilience. Life will inevitably throw challenges, setbacks, and disappointments your way. When you take responsibility, you develop the mindset that you can handle these difficulties because you are accountable for finding ways through or around them. This resilience makes you stronger and more adaptable over time, increasing your capacity to achieve your goals regardless of obstacles. And responsibility also inspires others. When you take ownership of your actions, you set an example for those around you, whether at work, in your family, or in your community. Your willingness to stand up and be accountable encourages others to do the same. This collective responsibility creates environments of trust, collaboration, and high performance. Leaders who take responsibility inspire loyalty and respect, making it easier to rally people toward a common vision. It's important to realize that taking responsibility is a skill that can be developed. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect or have all the answers immediately. It means practicing honesty with yourself about your role in situations, learning from mistakes, and choosing to act rather than react. It means pausing when faced with a challenge and asking, what part did I play? What can I do now to improve this? With practice, this mindset becomes a habit, and empowerment becomes a natural part of your life. A critical step in taking responsibility is changing the language you use with yourself and others. Instead of saying, I can't because, or they made me feel, you shift to I will, or I choose to wording. This subtle shift in wording changes your internal dialogue from powerless to powerful. It rewires your brain to focus on solutions and actions instead of problems and excuses. Another practical aspect of taking responsibility is setting clear goals and tracking your progress. When you have defined objectives, it becomes easier to hold yourself accountable. You can measure what you've done, identify where you fell short, and adjust your efforts. This intentional approach prevents drifting into complacency or excuse-making. It keeps you focused and motivated because you have a clear roadmap and know that your results depend on your efforts. Lastly, taking responsibility is deeply connected to self-respect. When you honor your commitments and hold yourself accountable, you build a stronger sense of self-worth. You feel proud of your actions and decisions because they align with your values. This self-respect creates a positive feedback loop. When you respect yourself, you make better choices, which leads to better outcomes, further reinforcing your responsibility and empowerment. Excuses are perhaps the most common and insidious barriers that delay success in any area of life. When you choose to make excuses, you are essentially putting your goals and dreams on hold. This act of postponement, whether intentional or subconscious, creates a gap between where you are and where you want to be, and that gap only grows larger the longer excuses remain in place. The reality is, success is not just about talent, luck, or resources. It is fundamentally about taking consistent action. Excuses disrupt this action, causing delays that accumulate into lost time, opportunities, and momentum. One of the primary ways excuses delay success is by fostering procrastination. Procrastination is the tendency to delay important tasks despite knowing the negative consequences. Excuses fuel procrastination because they provide seemingly valid reasons to avoid starting or continuing the work required. For example, someone might say, "I'll start my fitness journey tomorrow because I'm too tired today." Or, "I can't work on my project now because I don't have the right tools yet." Each excuse justifies putting off action to a later time, but that later time often becomes a never. The longer you procrastinate, the further success slips out of reach. Excuses also create a mindset of complacency. When you tell yourself that conditions aren't ideal or that you're not ready, you settle into a comfort zone where no growth occurs. Success demands effort, risk, and discomfort. Risk and discomfort. Excuses mask that discomfort by creating illusions of safety. "I'm not ready. I don't have enough experience," or "I'll wait until things are perfect." This perfectionism, paralyzed by excuses, leads to stagnation because perfection is a moving target that rarely, if ever, exists. The truth is, success starts with imperfect action. The more you wait for the right moment, the more time passes without progress. Another critical factor is the loss of momentum caused by excuses. Momentum is the driving force that propels you forward once you start making progress. When you take consistent action, each small success builds energy and motivation, creating a snowball effect. Excuses break this momentum by interrupting your efforts and creating gaps in progress. For instance, missing workouts, delaying deadlines, or skipping study sessions because of excuses reduces your forward movement and makes it harder to regain the pace. The longer the breaks, the more motivation wanes, and the harder it becomes to restart. Delaying success through excuses also impacts your confidence. Confidence is built through experience, effort, and accomplishment. When you hold yourself back with excuses, you rob yourself of the chance to build that experience. Without action, you don't learn, you don't improve, and you don't prove to yourself that you are capable. This lack of evidence erodes self-belief and reinforces the very excuses that prevent you from trying. It becomes a vicious cycle. Excuses delay success, which diminishes confidence, which then creates more excuses. Excuses can also affect your reputation and relationships, which indirectly delay success. People who frequently make excuses are often seen as unreliable or uncommitted. This perception can lead to fewer opportunities, less trust, and weaker support networks. Whether in a professional or personal context, relationships are key to success. When others doubt your dependability due to excuses, they may hesitate to offer you chances to prove yourself or collaborate on important projects. In this way, excuses don't just delay your progress, they close doors that could have accelerated it. Another way excuses delay success is by distracting you from your goals. When you focus on justifications, you shift your mental energy away from solutions and planning. Your mind becomes preoccupied with reasons why something won't work rather than how it can. This distraction reduces clarity and focus, making it difficult to prioritize and take effective action. Success requires clear goals and a dedicated focus on what matters most. Excuses muddy this clarity by cluttering your thoughts with doubts and what-ifs, which slow down decision-making and action. Excuses also lead to missed learning opportunities. Every action you take, especially when it involves challenge or failure, provides valuable lessons. When you delay action with excuses, you lose the chance to gain this knowledge. Growth and success depend on learning from mistakes and adjusting your approach. If you never start, or if you repeatedly hold back, your learning curve flattens. You remain stuck in theory rather than moving into practice, which is where real growth happens. In addition, excuses delay success by preventing the development of discipline. Discipline is the habit of doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. It's the foundation for achieving long-term goals. Excuses, however, encourage giving in to feelings of discomfort, laziness, or fear. By repeatedly choosing excuses over discipline, you weaken your self-control muscles. Over time, this makes it harder to commit to routines or push through challenges, further delaying your progress. The impact of excuses on time cannot be overstated. Time is a finite resource, and every moment spent making excuses is time lost that cannot be recovered. Unlike money or material possessions, once time passes, it's gone forever. Delaying success through excuses means losing precious time that could have been invested in building skills, forming habits, and making progress. This lost time accumulates into significant gaps in your journey, creating a distance between you and your goals that becomes increasingly difficult to bridge. Excuses also prevent you from taking advantage of opportunities that come your way. Often, success depends on recognizing and acting on opportunities quickly. When you hesitate or excuse yourself out of action, you risk missing these chances entirely. Opportunities can be fleeting: a job opening, a chance to meet a mentor, or a moment to showcase your talents. By the time you convince yourself that conditions are right or that you're ready, the opportunity may have passed to someone else who is willing to act without excuses. When you focus on excuses, you tend to view challenges as roadblocks instead of puzzles to solve. This limits your creativity and flexibility. Success often requires adapting to changing circumstances and finding innovative solutions. Excuses narrow your perspective, making problems seem bigger and more daunting than they are. This limits your ability to navigate obstacles effectively, slowing down your path to success. In many cases, excuses delay success because they stem from fear of failure, fear of judgment, or fear of the unknown. While this fear is natural, allowing it to manifest as excuses stops you from stepping into action. Fear creates paralysis, and excuses become a coping mechanism to avoid discomfort. However, the longer you let fear hold you back, the more distant your dreams become. Success demands courage, the courage to face fear, take risks, and push forward despite uncertainty. Excuses also hinder the development of accountability, which is essential for success. Accountability means owning your actions and outcomes, regardless of external factors. When you make excuses, you shift responsibility away from yourself, weakening your accountability. Without accountability, it's easy to rationalize failure or underperformance, which delays learning and improvement. By contrast, those who embrace accountability move faster towards success because they constantly evaluate their actions and make necessary adjustments. Finally, excuses delay success by eroding your internal drive and passion. When you justify inaction or failure, you distance yourself from your goals emotionally. Excuses create a disconnect between what you say you want and what you actually do. This disconnect dampens enthusiasm and weakens your commitment over time. Success requires sustained passion and energy, which excuses drain by creating mental and emotional fatigue. Excuses have a powerful way of creating and perpetuating a cycle of negativity that can engulf your mindset, emotions, and behaviors. This cycle is often invisible at first, creeping in quietly, but over time it can take a firm hold and significantly impact your life, your relationships, and your ability to achieve your goals. Understanding how excuses foster this negative cycle is essential for breaking free and cultivating a more positive, proactive, and empowered way of living. When you make an excuse, what you're really doing is shifting responsibility away from yourself and onto external factors or circumstances. This act may provide temporary relief by easing feelings of guilt, fear, or inadequacy, but it plants the seeds of negativity that grow into a damaging internal narrative. You begin to see yourself as a victim of your environment or circumstances rather than as a capable individual who can influence outcomes. This victim mentality is the foundation of the negative cycle. At the heart of this cycle is self-talk, the constant stream of thoughts you have about yourself and your situation. Excuses feed negative self-talk by reinforcing limiting beliefs. For example, if you say, "I can't succeed because I'm not smart enough," or going always unlucky, you are feeding your mind with disempowering messages. Over time, these repeated thoughts become deeply ingrained, shaping your identity and how you approach challenges. Instead of seeing obstacles as opportunities for growth, your mind interprets them as proof that failure is inevitable. This negative self-talk lowers your self-esteem and motivation, making it harder to take positive action. Excuses also foster feelings of frustration and helplessness. When you blame external factors for your lack of progress, you feel stuck and powerless. This helplessness can lead to a downward emotional spiral where you feel overwhelmed by problems and incapable of finding solutions. Instead of trying to change your situation, you may withdraw or give up altogether. This emotional state not only delays progress, but also drains your energy and enthusiasm, making it harder to break the cycle. Furthermore, excuses breed resentment and bitterness. When you externalize blame, you often harbor frustration toward the people or circumstances you believe are responsible for your struggles. This resentment creates emotional baggage that weighs heavily on your mental well-being. It can poison your relationships, isolating you from supportive people who could help you grow. Bitterness also clouds your judgment, making it difficult to see alternatives or accept constructive feedback, both of which are necessary for personal development. The cycle of negativity created by excuses affects your behavior as well. When you constantly justify inaction or failure, you develop habits that reinforce this pattern. For instance, you might avoid challenges, procrastinate, or settle for mediocrity because your excuses provide a convenient reason not to strive for more. These behaviors further diminish your chances of success, creating a feedback loop where failure or stagnation confirms your excuses and feeds your negative mindset. Socially, excuses can isolate you. People naturally gravitate toward positivity and accountability. If you are frequently making excuses, others may begin to distance themselves, perceiving you as unreliable or unwilling to take responsibility. This social isolation can deepen your negative feelings and reduce your access to encouragement and opportunities. Supportive relationships are crucial for breaking negative cycles, and excuses can erode those connections before you even realize it. In addition, excuses prevent you from learning and growing. Growth requires reflection, honesty, and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths about yourself and your actions. When you rely on excuses, you avoid this self-examination. You mask failures and mistakes with justifications rather than using them as learning experiences. This avoidance stunts your personal and professional development because true improvement comes from acknowledging where you went wrong and making changes. Another important element is that excuses lower your resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from setbacks and keep moving forward despite adversity. When you make excuses, you reduce your exposure to challenge and discomfort, which are essential for building resilience. Over time, your capacity to cope with difficulties weakens, making you more vulnerable to stress and less able to adapt when obstacles arise. This fragility perpetuates the negative cycle because challenges become more overwhelming and excuses become more tempting. Excuses also affect your vision and long-term goals. When you justify inaction or delay progress, you lose sight of your bigger picture. The daily habit of making excuses narrows your focus to immediate discomfort or inconvenience, causing you to lose motivation for the future. Your dreams become overshadowed by a series of small negative choices that chip away at your ambition. This loss of vision is a significant component of the negative cycle because it erodes hope and diminishes your drive to persevere. Emotionally, excuses breed guilt and shame. Although excuses serve as a way to avoid facing responsibility, deep down you may still feel aware that you are not living up to your potential. This internal conflict creates feelings of guilt, knowing you could do better, but choosing not to. Guilt, when unresolved, can turn into shame, a painful sense of personal failure. These feelings damage your self-worth and further entrench negative thinking. Instead of motivating you to change, guilt and shame often lead to withdrawal and increased excuse-making. The negative cycle fueled by excuses is also harmful because it makes it harder to build positive habits. Positive habits require consistency and effort, and they often demand pushing through discomfort. Excuses provide a tempting escape from this effort. When you give in to excuses, you miss opportunities to reinforce positive behaviors that lead to success. Over time, this weakens your ability to create lasting change and keeps you trapped in a pattern of underachievement. Moreover, excuses create a false sense of security. By blaming external circumstances, you shield yourself from the fear of failure and the risk of trying. This false security feels safe in the short term, but is ultimately limiting. It prevents you from taking the necessary risks that lead to growth and accomplishment. Over time, this safety zone becomes a prison, reinforcing the negative cycle by preventing you from moving forward and experiencing success. The longer you remain stuck in this cycle, the more it influences your identity and self-image. You start to see yourself as someone who always fails, someone who can't overcome challenges, or someone who lacks discipline and drive. This negative identity becomes self-perpetuating because your actions begin to align with this belief. You unconsciously seek out situations that confirm your excuses and avoid those that challenge them. Breaking this cycle requires conscious effort and a willingness to rewrite the story you tell yourself about who you are. Breaking the cycle of negativity created by excuses begins with awareness. Recognizing the excuses you make and understanding how they contribute to negative thoughts and behaviors is the first step. From there, you can challenge those excuses by questioning their validity and replacing them with empowering beliefs. This process involves developing self-compassion, as it's easy to fall into harsh self-criticism when confronting excuses. Instead, focus on progress and growth, understanding that change takes time and effort. Replacing excuses with accountability shifts your mindset from victimhood to empowerment. Accountability encourages you to take ownership of your actions and results, which breaks the cycle of blame and negativity. When you hold yourself responsible, you create a foundation for positive change and growth. This shift also opens the door to building healthier relationships, as others will see you as reliable and trustworthy, increasing your support network. Positive self-talk is another essential tool in breaking the negative cycle. By consciously choosing words and thoughts that encourage and motivate you, you rewire your brain to focus on possibilities rather than limitations. Affirmations, gratitude, and visualization are powerful techniques that can help replace negative patterns reinforced by excuses. Over time, these practices build resilience, boost confidence, and foster a mindset oriented toward success. In addition, cultivating a problem-solving attitude counters the negativity of excuses. Instead of dwelling on obstacles or reasons why something can't be done, focus on what can be done. This shift encourages creativity, resourcefulness, and optimism, which fuel progress. Each small solution found strengthens your belief in your ability to overcome challenges and reduces the temptation to make excuses. Building emotional resilience is crucial in breaking the negative cycle as well. Developing the ability to tolerate discomfort, manage stress, and face fears without retreating into excuses strengthens your overall well-being. Techniques such as mindfulness, meditation, and cognitive behavioral strategies can help regulate emotions and increase mental toughness, making it easier to confront difficulties head-on. Ultimately, breaking the cycle of negativity requires commitment and persistence. It involves changing habits, beliefs, and behaviors that have likely been ingrained over years. But every step toward responsibility, accountability, and positive thinking weakens the grip of excuses and negativity. Gradually, you reclaim your power and open the door to a more fulfilling, successful, and empowered life. Every individual is born with a unique set of talents, abilities, and potential that can be harnessed to achieve greatness. However, excuses serve as one of the greatest obstacles to unlocking and realizing this potential. When you make excuses, you are not only avoiding action, you are actively undermining your own capacity to grow, develop, and succeed. This self-sabotage has far-reaching consequences that stunt your progress and prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. One of the ways excuses undermine potential is by limiting your willingness to take risks. Potential cannot be fully realized unless you push beyond your comfort zone and embrace challenges. Every breakthrough in life, whether in career, relationships, or personal growth, comes from stepping into uncertainty and taking action, despite fear. Excuses provide a shield to protect you from risk, but this protection is a trap. By constantly rationalizing why now isn't the right time, or why you're not ready, you shut down opportunities for growth. Over time, this repeated avoidance erodes your confidence to face future challenges and closes doors to new possibilities. Moreover, excuses stunt your learning process. Realizing potential is a journey of continuous learning and improvement. When you make excuses, you avoid confronting mistakes, failures, or uncomfortable truths about your performance. Instead of seeing setbacks as valuable lessons, excuses lead you to deny responsibility and avoid self-reflection. This prevents you from gaining insights that are essential for growth. In effect, you remain stuck in the same patterns and behaviors, never pushing your limits or expanding your capabilities. Excuses also diminish your motivation and drive. Potential is fueled by a deep internal desire to grow and achieve. When you allow excuses to dominate your mindset, this inner fire dims. You begin to settle for mediocrity, because excuses justify why you can't strive for more. This settling is dangerous, because it conditions you to accept less than what you're capable of, which creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. Self-fulfilling prophecy. The more you convince yourself that you are limited by circumstances, the less motivated you become to put in the effort required to surpass those limits. Another critical way excuses undermine potential is by affecting your time management and priorities. Potential requires consistent investment of time and effort toward your goals. Excuses, however, shift your focus toward avoidance and delay. When you say, "I don't have enough time," or "I'm too tired today," you are effectively stealing moments from your growth journey. Over time, these stolen moments accumulate into years of lost progress. Excuses cause you to prioritize comfort over challenge, leisure over discipline, and in doing so, they silently erode the foundation upon which potential is built. Additionally, excuses weaken your resilience and ability to persevere. Potential is not about avoiding failure, but about bouncing back stronger after setbacks. Every successful person has faced failure multiple times, but chose to persist regardless. Excuses, on the other hand, teach you to see failure as a dead end or a reason to give up. This mindset reduces your capacity to cope with adversity and makes it more likely that you will abandon your goals at the first sign of difficulty. Over time, this creates a habit of quitting rather than pushing through, which is fatal to reaching your true potential. Excuses also prevent you from developing the discipline necessary to maximize your abilities. Talent and potential alone are not enough. Discipline and hard work are the engines that drive achievement. When excuses become your default response, you resist the daily routines and sacrifices that build skill and strength. You tell yourself, "I don't feel like it," or "I'll do it later," which undermines your ability to develop habits of consistency and focus. This lack of discipline means that even your natural gifts remain dormant or underutilized. The impact of excuses extends to your mindset as well. A fixed mindset, which believes abilities and intelligence are static, often goes hand in hand with excuse-making. When you say, "I'm just not good at this," or "I'll never be able to do that," you close off the possibility of improvement. This contrasts sharply with a growth mindset, which embraces challenges and sees failure as a chance to learn. Excuses anchor you in fixed thinking, limiting your potential to grow by reinforcing limiting beliefs about your capabilities. Excuses also interfere with your ability to set and achieve meaningful goals. When you make excuses, you tend to set lower expectations for yourself or avoid goal setting altogether. Without clear, ambitious goals, your potential remains unchallenged and unexplored. Goals serve as a roadmap for growth, providing direction and motivation. Excuses blur this roadmap, causing you to drift aimlessly or stay in your comfort zone. Without goals pushing you forward, your natural abilities remain untapped. Furthermore, excuses hinder your creativity and innovation. Potential thrives on curiosity, experimentation, and the willingness to try new approaches. Excuses act as mental barriers that limit your creative thinking. When you justify not trying because of fear, lack of resources, or timing, you restrict your ability to explore new ideas or solutions. This limitation prevents you from discovering new strengths or developing unique talents that could elevate your success to new heights. Excuses also damage your self-esteem and self-worth, which are critical components of realizing potential. When you consistently avoid responsibility and justify failures, you send a message to yourself that you are not capable or worthy of success. This internalized doubt undermines your confidence and discourages you from pursuing opportunities that could stretch your abilities. Without a strong sense of self-worth, it becomes difficult to take bold steps or persist through challenges. Moreover, excuses can create a pattern of dependency on external validation or circumstances. Instead of trusting your inner capabilities, you wait for the perfect conditions or approval from others. This dependency keeps you reactive rather than proactive, making you vulnerable to external factors beyond your control. Potential is realized when you take ownership of your journey, regardless of external support or conditions. Excuses shift this ownership away, leaving you powerless to influence your outcomes. In relationships, excuses can limit your ability to build meaningful connections that foster growth. Success and potential often require collaboration, mentorship, and support from others. When you make excuses, you may avoid reaching out for help, feedback, or partnership, fearing judgment or failure. This isolation reduces your access to resources and wisdom that could accelerate your development. By closing yourself off with excuses, you deny yourself valuable opportunities for learning and advancement. Excuses also prevent you from experiencing the satisfaction and fulfillment that comes from realizing your potential. Growth and achievement bring a deep sense of accomplishment and joy. When you hold yourself back with excuses, you deprive yourself of these rewarding experiences. This deprivation can lead to regret and dissatisfaction later in life, as you look back and recognize how much you limited yourself through inaction. Ultimately, excuses are a form of self-sabotage that keep you trapped in a cycle of underachievement. Each excuse erodes the belief in your ability to grow, learn, and succeed. They create artificial limits that do not exist in reality but become real through repetition and acceptance. Overcoming excuses is essential to breaking free from these constraints and stepping into the full expression of your potential. The path to unlocking your potential requires courage, commitment, and accountability. It means facing fears, taking risks, and pushing through discomfort. It involves replacing excuses with action, negative self-talk with positive affirmations, and procrastination with discipline. When you do this, you tap into reservoirs of strength and ability you may not have realized you possessed. This transformation opens the door to achievements that reflect your true capabilities and allows you to live a life of purpose and fulfillment. Taking responsibility is one of the most powerful steps you can take toward personal growth, success, and transformation. When you accept responsibility for your actions, decisions, and circumstances, you reclaim control over your life and empower yourself to create meaningful change. Unlike excuses, which remove accountability and shift blame outward, responsibility places you firmly in the driver's seat of your journey. This shift in mindset is foundational because it transforms how you view challenges, setbacks, and opportunities. At its core, taking responsibility means acknowledging that while you may not control every situation or external event, you always have control over how you respond. This distinction is crucial. Life inevitably presents obstacles and unexpected events that are beyond your influence. But your reaction to those events, your attitude, and the choices you make afterward are within your control. By embracing this truth, you stop seeing yourself as a passive victim and instead become an active agent of change. This perspective fosters empowerment because it highlights your ability to shape outcomes, regardless of circumstances. One of the most significant benefits of taking responsibility is the development of self-awareness. When you look honestly at your role in any given situation, whether it's a success or a failure, you gain valuable insights into your strengths, weaknesses, and patterns of behavior. This self-awareness is the foundation of growth because it allows you to identify areas where you can improve, adapt, and learn. Without responsibility, you remain blind to your own contributions and limitations, which hinders ability to evolve. Taking responsibility also fosters a mindset of problem solving rather than blame. Instead of wasting energy on excuses and finger pointing, you focus on identifying solutions and taking constructive action. This proactive approach makes you more resilient and resourceful. You learn to view problems as challenges to be overcome rather than insurmountable barriers. This shift in thinking increases your ability to navigate adversity and find ways to move forward, even when conditions are difficult. When you take responsibility, you build trust and credibility with others. Accountability is a highly valued trait in both personal and professional relationships. People are more likely to respect and rely on those who own their mistakes and fulfill their commitments. This trust creates stronger connections and opens doors to new opportunities, such as leadership roles, collaborations, and mentorship. Conversely, excuses erode trust because they signal unreliability and a lack of integrity. Taking responsibility also strengthens your self-confidence. When you accept ownership of your actions and their consequences, you develop a sense of competence and control. Each time you overcome a challenge through your own efforts, your belief in your capabilities grows. This positive feedback loop builds momentum and encourages you to take on bigger goals and risks. Over time, your confidence becomes a powerful asset that propels you toward your aspirations. Moreover, responsibility encourages a growth mindset. It aligns with the belief that your abilities and intelligence can be developed through effort and learning. When you take responsibility, you see failures and setbacks not as reflections of your worth, but as opportunities to improve. This mindset is essential for continuous development and adaptability in a constantly changing world. Without responsibility, you risk stagnation and defeatism. Taking responsibility also enhances your decision-making skills. When you recognize that you are accountable for your choices, you become more deliberate and thoughtful in your actions. This increased mindfulness helps you weigh consequences, gather information, and make better decisions. Over time, this leads to improved judgment and a clearer sense of direction in life. Excuses, by contrast, often stem from impulsive reactions or avoidance, which can lead to poor outcomes. Additionally, responsibility improves your emotional resilience. Owning your experiences, including failures and mistakes, allows you to process emotions healthily rather than suppress or deflect them through excuses. This emotional honesty helps you develop coping mechanisms and reduces feelings of shame or guilt. As a result, you become better equipped to handle stress, setbacks, and criticism without losing motivation or self-esteem. Taking responsibility also fosters discipline and consistency. When you hold yourself accountable, you are more likely to follow through on commitments, set realistic goals, and maintain good habits. This consistency is key to building skills and achieving long-term success. Excuses undermine discipline by providing convenient reasons to delay or abandon efforts, whereas responsibility cultivates persistence and reliability. Furthermore, embracing responsibility encourages ownership of your personal narrative. Your story, the way you interpret your life experiences, shapes your identity and future actions. When you take responsibility, you actively shape this narrative to reflect your agency and growth rather than victimhood and helplessness. This empowers you to rewrite limiting beliefs and craft a story of resilience, courage, and achievement. Taking responsibility also expands your capacity for empathy and understanding. When you reflect on your own role in situations, you become more aware of the complexities of human behavior and motivations. This awareness fosters compassion for yourself and others, reducing blame and judgment. It also improves your ability to communicate and resolve conflicts, strengthening your relationships and social support systems. Moreover, responsibility aligns with the principle of integrity. Integrity means living in alignment with your values and principles. When you take responsibility, you demonstrate honesty and accountability, which are essential components of integrity. This alignment between your actions and values creates inner harmony and peace of mind. Excuses, on the other hand, create dissonance and internal conflict that can lead to stress and dissatisfaction. Taking responsibility also increases your ability to influence and lead. Whether in formal leadership roles or informal situations, accountable individuals inspire others through their example. By modeling responsibility, you encourage a culture of ownership and proactive behavior around you. This influence magnifies your impact and creates ripple effects that extend beyond your personal life to your community and workplace. Importantly, taking responsibility is a catalyst for empowerment because it shifts your focus from external factors to internal control. When you stop blaming circumstances or other people, you reclaim your power. This shift changes your energy from passive to active, from reactive to proactive. With this empowered mindset, you are better positioned to set goals, take risks, and pursue your passions with determination and clarity. Taking responsibility also helps break the cycle of excuses and negativity by establishing a foundation of accountability